Good morning, everyone. My name is William Mickford, and I'm part of the team here at CCH iFirm, and I will be your moderator for today's Firm Focus webinar on utilising social media in your firm. You should be able to see Rebecca Caroe pop up from Creative Agency's Secrets shortly when she starts up her webcam. We've just had a bit of audio technical problems this morning, but we'll forge ahead straight away. This is the last webinar in a series of 3 that we've actually presented with Creative Agency Secrets. There'll be links to earlier recordings if you've missed any of these in the follow-up email for today. Many of you will be familiar by now with the features of GoToWebinar, but I'll just quickly cover your control panel, which you'll find in the top right-hand corner of your screen. You've all been placed on mute, but you can ask questions through the questions panel. Feel free to fire these through as you think of them, and Rebecca will get to as many as possible. This is actually the last in the series of 3, so we'd really appreciate your feedback in the follow-up survey at the end. This doesn't have to be around any topics such as digital marketing and things like that, but anything that you'd like to learn more in soft skills, HR, personal skills. If there's sufficient interest in it, we'll arrange for an expert presenter to take you through it. So now, hopefully, I'll be able to hand over to Rebecca Caroe, who's going to take you through utilising social media in your firm. Rebecca.
Hi, everybody. Good morning. It's really nice to be here again, and Will, thank you for such a warm welcome. Now, I'm going to assume that a few people have been on the previous 2 webinars that we ran, and this one builds on both the first and the second. Our first one was about using your website as part of your firm's marketing, and the second one was about a beginner's guide to social media. As before, could you get a pen and paper ready so that as I talk, if there are ideas that occur to you, you can write them down immediately, and then this will give you a list of things to do after the event. Now let's look first at the big picture here. We all know that we have to be seen in the markets where our clients and prospects are hanging out. We know that if our firm is a member of the Chamber of Commerce and our prospects are members of the Chamber, that's a really good way of getting to speak to people who might become clients of the firm. But if they are on social media, we must also be on social media. So one of the tasks from the previous talk was to go and look at your main clients' websites and see whether or not they have social media accounts. If you haven't done that, I strongly recommend that be the first thing you write down. Now, in terms of this event, it's really important that if you're going to be doing social, it's about achieving the business plan goals that the firm has set for itself. Now, I'm in no position at the moment to judge about that, but here's some of the things that I would like you to think about. The first thing is that social media is not a sales tool that you can use to get new customers on its own. That's the important bit, on its own. Basically, social is a tool that we can use to find new prospects, to get people aware of the name of the firm and the people who work there, and to showcase credibly your skills and expertise in the areas in which you work. These are the 3 principal social media channels, of which the top 2 are probably the favoured ones for accountancy firms nationwide in Australia and New Zealand and the rest of the English-speaking world. Now, thinking about the goals that your firm has, it's pretty obvious to say this, but you need to have the same goals inside your social media. So, what are the things that social is good for and might be worth aligning with your business planning goals? The first thing is building profile for the firm, the partners and the staff. Get your name known, get the principal people known so that people have heard of them. Building on that, of course, is name recognition for your business, and being particularly, I would add, geographically known, because many firms have a focus of a particular city or town or region, and or a particular expertise. So the skills and the particular detailed insights that you can offer are an important part of what social can be used for, and equally, it can help you find other people online who are talking about some of the issues among and around finance and accounting that you may be able to answer. Now, the things that social media is, I've described it as neutral about. These are things that it's neither good nor bad. It works well for some, but may not work for everybody. Launching new products and services is definitely something that can be done on social, but it does depend on you already having a strong following and being a very proactive user. Building a list of new prospects for your clients' services is again possible, but it isn't something that I've seen a lot of accounting firms do in a successful way. And the last thing is starting a sales dialogue. It can be done. Some people do use social to ask questions, which then, if you answer a question, for example, you may be able to then have a dialogue with the firm. But very few people have started doing this proactively. Social is not good for adding new prospects into a sales pipeline, particularly for business to business, which of course is the area in which we're all trading. It's also not very good for deep relationship building with prospective clients. Getting to know them properly is something that really does need to be done face to face. And as I said before, you're reasonably unlikely to sign up new clients off the page as such. Getting people to buy off your website, having had a lead from social, is reasonably unlikely. Doesn't mean to say any of these things are impossible. It just allows you to set expectations of your goals against the firm's goals and with the social media goals. Now, how are you going to find more followers and connect with more people online? My first bit of advice here is to agree what your niche is. Some of you will be specialists in tax, some will be general accounting, some will be bookkeeping. You need to pin down what those are, and I'm hoping that you won't have more than one or two. You're going to need to find people who are already talking about that area, and searches are the way to do that. We'll be setting up alerts and showing you how to do those searches so that you can find other people online who are running and talking in this area. And RSS feeds are also a really useful tool that can help us in this area. What we're going to be looking for is a range of different people and organisations across all the different social media networks. So these could be firms, they could be clients, existing clients of your firm, they could be groups, they could be discussions, they could just be individuals like myself. What's important here is that the profile that you present to the firm needs to line up with that niche. So if your niche is tax accounting, make sure that you mention it in your profile when you create an account in social media. Then it makes it easy for people who are looking for tax accountants to actually find you. Let's kick off now with finding out about how to set up alerts. Now, Google has run this service for many years now. You go to your Google homepage, whichever domain you choose. I've put .co.nz here, but you could have .com.au or .com, and go to /alerts. Here, you can put in a phrase or a single word, which Google will then search the web for. Now, that's what Google does normally. But what's different about this service is that it will then send you an email with the answers to that search on a regular basis. So this is a really useful way of finding new content that matches your search string. I've put an example up here of the words NZ tax. And as you can see, it's suggesting that it will create an email alert for my email address, which you can see. At its most simple level, I strongly recommend you create alerts for the firm's name and for the names of the principal people inside the business. If you have someone who has a very, very common name, for example, John Smith, there are lots of people called John Smith out there. So you might want to edit your alert using the exact same modifiers that you can use in normal Google search, such as inverted commas, excludes, and put the name John Smith, maybe in inverted commas, and then the word accountant or tax afterwards, so that you exclude people who and articles that haven't got the word accountant in it, but have got the words John Smith, one after the other. At the bottom of the page, I've put a picture of the drop-down menu, which comes when you click the Show Options button. It is important to customize this because either you end up getting swamped or you get poor results, and you do need to check these and adapt them based on what Google serves you. So the options are how often. So you could have once a day, as it happens, or once a week. Sources is the area, and now that searches everything, which might be a good place to start. But it may be that you actually only want to search in news. So you want to get NZ tax news, in which case I would only tick news, and then Google will only go and search news websites. Or you can have blogs, video, web, which is basically any firm's website, books or discussions. And depending on what it is you're looking for, you can then select the most appropriate ones. Below that, it offers language, so you may choose to only request searches in English. Region, which is self-explanatory, how many searches you want, and to whom to deliver them. So it's very easy to set up. And I suggest you start with 3 or 4 different ones, one for your niche, one for the firm's name, and one for the principal people in the firm, as a beginning point. When you receive them, what you get is an email which looks like a Google search return. So it's got a URL and usually 2 or 3 lines of text that explain what's in that URL. My way of working these is to open up a link in a new browser window for every single one that I think might be relevant. So I can read the email, I then right-click on each link and open it either in a new window, a new tab. So you end up with 3 or 4 different ones open simultaneously. Then you can delete the email or save it or put it aside and review each web page separately. And then you can decide what to do with the information that you find in the web page. It might be that it's a new account or someone talking about NZ tax that you might want to follow, or you might want to reshare their content. But it then sets it up nicely for you to use this as part of your social media marketing. But Google Alerts isn't the only search place. Here I've put up 3 images of different searches that you could use. The first one on the left is a search I did inside Twitter. And again, I searched for NZ tax. And as you can see, I've got 3 results immediately. The top one is from somebody who is a mortgage broker, Focus Mortgages. And he's actually repeating a news item from Dilip Patel's Property News. Below it is the same news story, but as represented by a newspaper. The ODT, the Otago Daily Times, is the local newspaper for Dunedin. And below it is a tax accountant who has set out a different tweet, which is about what to do if the IRD gives you a tax repayment in error. Now that's quite a nice one. Over on LinkedIn, I did a similar search, and again, here on the drop-down, you can see that there are lots of different options for what to search for. I didn't actually want to search for people or businesses, in this case, who are about NZ tax. I wanted to search for posts, which is articles that people have published on LinkedIn, which relate to my search string. And at the bottom is another search option, which is a website that allows you to search RSS. And again, you can use the same search terms and be sent links to different websites that have RSS feeds containing that search term. I recommend you have a look at all of these, and some of them are worth repeating on a weekly basis so that you can find new followers, for example, in Twitter, new articles in LinkedIn. I strongly suspect there aren't that many websites that are talking about NZ tax, so it may be that you don't need to do the RSS ones again. Now, let's look at some of the things that you do need to do to get your social media going. The first thing is to add followers. Your social media is worthless unless you've got a following, and that starts with you following someone else first. I recommend when you're starting out to keep a balanced ratio of followers to following, because then it makes it look a little bit less like you're stalking somebody. If you have a very, very imbalanced ratio, you're either world famous or you're trying too hard to follow people. Plus, you do need to know that some websites like Twitter have follower limits if your ratios are not reasonably closely matched. When you get to 2,000 people that you are following, and if your followers are not equivalent, Twitter will block you from following anyone else. I believe there are some other limits that apply above that, but there are reasonably few accounting firms at the moment who've hit the 2,000 limit. I do recommend that you maintain a list, a paper list, it could be a spreadsheet, but you put down important people that you are following, whose accounts that you find. You can just have their name and maybe their specialism or particular hashtags that you found them under, but it is really useful then to be able to use that as a way of going back to people and asking them specific questions or asking for their help or following them if they are particularly prominent. I then suggest you grow your own followers using the existing network that the firm has. Go through all of your clients. Remember I suggested that at the beginning? Write about your social media activity in your firm's newsletter that goes out to clients. What about your staff? I bet there are quite a few of them who've got social media accounts. Ask them to follow you, and you can also follow them back. And I do recommend promoting social everywhere. Places like email signatures or prominently on the header bar in your website, so that it's really clear to anyone who looks, if they're so inclined, how to find you on social. For those of you who use LinkedIn, you can have your social profiles publicly available to people who are not first-degree connections. And this is often a very useful way of going and checking someone out who you're not yet in contact with. Quite often they will publish their Twitter handle. And I think that's a really useful tool because it enables a certain degree of research and filtering before you make that formal approach. Now, what should I be saying? In general, there are lots of different things that can be put onto social media. And what I want to talk about here is ways of building your following in an appropriate fashion, particularly when you're just starting out. And I would say that anyone who's got 200 or fewer followers is just starting out. Here's what I recommend: a 70-20-10 ratio, of which the 70% is your content resharing or retweeting information originated by other people. Now, this could be newspaper articles like that one I showed you about what to do when the IRD mistakenly pays you money. Or it could be that Otago Daily Times mention about the Labour leadership. The reason for suggesting this is it's a very safe place to start. All you're doing is working on material that's already been approved by others, and those others are, in all likelihood, more experienced users than yourself, so you're unlikely to go far wrong. Now, you always must read each article before you reshare it or retweet it. This is a discipline that is non-negotiable. There are too many opportunities for making errors if you don't do this. But having read the article, it may be that you know that the firm has an opinion or a point of view on this, or it can add to the discussion around the topic. And in this case, you can add a comment of your own. And that leads us to the 20%. 20% of the volume of your tweets should be comments that you make on articles written by others. And lastly, of course, your own posts. Now, I recommend the vast majority of firms that a once-a-week blog post is usually sufficient to keep their profile going. And so in any given week, you could have one tweet or one LinkedIn share or one Facebook share, which is directly from your firm's newsfeed or your website blog. Now, of course, there may be other things that you post about on particularly Twitter, because it kind of demands a higher volume frequency compared with a news blog. And so this is where the 10% comes in. Original stuff written by yourselves. Now, when you begin to feel a little bit more confident using social, here's a slightly different focus that I recommend. 5-3-2, a different ratio, but again, predominantly content from other people. And some of this content could come from the alerts that you've set up or the searches that you've been doing. The 3 is 3, for every 5 posts you do on content from others, 3 can be content from yourself. Now, that's a significant increase on the starter module, because I'm guessing that you're beginning to feel relaxed in the medium. You're beginning to see what the tone of voice and the way of writing is, whether it's casual or formal, for example. And so you can increase the amount that you write. And then the 2 is personal messages. One of the problems of marketing a business is that the business can appear to be distant. We all know that businesses are made up of people, and the people in the firm are actually the reason why the firm does well, because people have relationships with people. They don't actually have a relationship with a business. And so personal messages, which are about the people in the business or by the people in the business, are the sort of thing that you can increase the volume around. So this might be celebrating someone getting qualified. It may be a birthday. It might be something that's to do with them winning a particular new client. It doesn't have to be about eating tuna sandwiches for lunch. A quick note on etiquette, and this is a slide that I'm repeating from the previous webinar. Don't be pushy. Please treat social media a bit like trying to make friends with someone down the pub. Be prepared to listen more than you speak. Remember that thing about one mouth and 2 ears? So listen more. And be generous. Socially generosity is always valued online and is a better way to build an audience in the medium term. And that pretty much reflects the ratios that I talked about in the previous slide. If you need more detail on etiquette, there's a URL here from a very useful article published on ProBlogger.net, which is an Australian website run by Darren Rouse, and I commend it to you. Share it around your colleagues in the office if you're going to have a range of people using social media for business. I now want to spend a little bit of time on RSS. This stands for really simple syndication, and it is a very simple piece of computer code that allows information to be shared around the web. It's been around for a very long time. Look it up on Wikipedia if you want to know more. But the point is, without RSS, we're vastly compromised in our ability to share content. One of the best uses for RSS is to use it to send out emails. Now, the RSS symbol is an orange square with a dot in the bottom left-hand corner and radiating white lines moving out from there. It's often put on web pages to indicate that content changes frequently on that page and that you can subscribe to receive the content using this tool. If your business website does not have an RSS feed, write that down now. You absolutely need to have one. They're very easy to create. I can do it for you myself. But without it, it becomes harder to share content and to get active on social. Now, I recommend to most of my clients that we use their RSS feed to deliver news content, particularly by email, because pretty much everyone nowadays has an email address. About 5 years ago, RSS readers were the commonly used tool to get information from news pages, from blogs that were being updated. But they're falling out of fashion, and compared with email, they're slightly more complicated to use. So unless you're a confident technology user, I strongly recommend encouraging your readers and clients to get your content by email. So the service is called RSS to email, and we use it to send out blog posts. So as they publish, one of your clients or customers or prospects can receive an email that says newly published and the title of the blog post. We also use the same technology to collate blog posts into newsletters. So say you have a newsletter that goes out once every month or once every 2 months. You can use the RSS feed to pull together all of the blog posts published in that period, put them into a pre-agreed templated format with the firm's logo at the top and the name of your newsletter if it has one, and to send it out. And of course, the joy of this is that you don't have to write the newsletter from scratch. It happens automatically, so as long as you've written some blog posts in the period since the last newsletter. And of course, autoresponders is the last RSS tool. These are a really helpful email service that automatically send out emails to people at a predetermined schedule. We've written an autoresponder about autoresponders on our website, so if you'd like a copy, just drop me a line after today. The most obvious autoresponder is the newsletter subscriber welcome. We all get it. It says, hello, click here to confirm your subscription, and it then immediately sends you a welcome message as soon as you've confirmed it. But remember, you can actually follow up with more than just a welcome message. Why not add in a second message that says, here's the firm's profile, these are our specialisms, here are our principal people. Here's how to get in touch with us. Please connect with us on LinkedIn. And you could then have more emails that follow up in over a period of weeks or months. For example, showcasing your archive of news blogs, particularly things that are what I call evergreen, which is articles that do not date, or making an offer. So if you get your tax return in early, we make a donation to a favourite charity, and so on. We have clients where we have an autoresponder that runs for over 2 years using their archive content once a month. It sends out a short message with links to old articles that the readers might find interesting. Now, the sorts of tools that can deliver RSS to email include Aweber, MailChimp, and Feedblitz.com. Feedblitz used to be a client of ours, and we do favour them over the other two because of their newsletter service. It is extremely useful. They also allow you to create multiple RSS feeds off your single website blog. And this is really helpful if you have different audiences. So if you go to our website, Creative Agency Secrets, we have a newsletter called Marketing for Accountants. You might be interested in that. But we also have one that's about marketing for funeral homes and one that's about marketing for small business. And you may not be interested in those. They actually use the same RSS feed, but it has a filter on it so that the Marketing for Accountants newsletter list only receives articles that have been tagged with that category. This is really useful, particularly if you have a range of different clients for the firm. So you might have personal tax clients and business tax clients, for example. Lastly, if you want to set up multiple RSS feeds for your CCH website, please get in touch because the default only sends a link to the summary page of all of your articles, and it doesn't update individually when you publish a new one. Now let's have a look at various automation tools that can make your life simpler and enable you to manage and measure your social media marketing. There are a lot of different tools that cover a lot of similar areas, and as a consequence, I've just decided to list them all here. Some of them overlap. So Buffer and Social Oomph are ones that allow you to queue up tweets and posts that go to lots of different social media sites so that you can forward plan. one of the things we do is sit down on a Monday morning and write out a load of stuff that then is published over the course of the week. So you don't have to keep interrupting your work in order to set up the social media sharing you plan to do that week. Deliver It is quite cute. It allows you, as does IFTTT, which stands for if this, then that. These allow you to use that RSS feed to specify where your blog content goes to. So if you want it to go to LinkedIn, or if you want it to go to Google+, if this then that is similarly set up. So if you wanted to update, for example, an individual partner's LinkedIn profile from the firm's newspaper website, that could be arranged through that. And with Divot, I've just said that it covers app.net and Delicious, which are two slightly less well-known social networks. Delicious is a bookmarking site where, remember the old days we used to photocopy interesting articles and save them in files? Well, Delicious is an online equivalent of that. So you can put the URL in, write a comment about why it's interesting, and also add comments and tags about the sort of categories that you would put it in. Zapier has a similar service that allows you to automate actions. So when something happens in one social network, you can then automatically cross-share it into others. TweetDeck and Hootsuite are specific Twitter management services, but they also allow you to manage onto other social media sites. They both started as Twitter tools. TweetDeck was written by an Englishman of my acquaintance and was sold to Twitter. Hootsuite is independent and has a premium service, which is well worth paying for, particularly if you have a range of different Twitter accounts to look after. Post Planner pretty much does what it says on the tin. It allows you to forward schedule things for Facebook. Having said that, Facebook itself does have scheduling options, and these have changed slightly in their location on your page in recent weeks, but it is useful then to be able to forward plan what you put out. Azuka is a process integration and automation tool. If you understand business process management, this could be really, really useful. But you do need to have a good understanding of how that works, and also be already using a CRM system and a marketing automation tool. As I say in the brackets, it allows you to appraise the sentiment of tweets and social media shares. Are they positive, neutral, or negative? And it's also particularly good for customer service support, which of course may not be so relevant for accountants. And mention is one I particularly like because it tells you when you've been mentioned, which is a little bit like the Google Alerts. Now, if you're confused about these and other social media tools, use a website called trustradius.com, which allows you to compare different applications. It's completely independent, and you can look at user reviews that are both positive and negative about each one. Now, timing your social media publications is quite a big area of expertise and research. You can't assume that everybody does their social media in a 9 to 5 window. Particularly if you have clients across the continent of Australia, they're going to be operating in different time zones. Don't forget those people in Brisbane don't do summertime. Or if you've got international clients, of course, that applies. So a good way to start is to start with a log of when your posts actually get their likes and shares. Find out what your recent history has been like and what time of day that was. Also think about yourself. I mentioned that in our team, we do a lot of our social media monitoring and planning early in the week. Now, it might be that actually you get a lot of activity later in the week, so those two things need to be aligned. And here I've put down 3 separate tools, Social Bro, Follower Wonk, and Tweeried, that allow you to have a look inside your existing followers and to look at when those people are online, which is what Social Bro does, so that you can then use that insight in order to plan the times when you publish your work. Remember, of course, that list I talked about earlier? Well, if you look at the most popular people on the list, or the ones that you're most keen to get noticed by, that might influence your choice of timing. Follower Wonk is also useful Remember, we agreed that you were going to have perhaps one or two niches in which you operate. Taking the key words from those niche agreements, you can then search people's biographies. So if you're looking for other tax accountants, you can then find other people on Twitter who mention the words tax and accountant in their biography. And that was why I said to you that you should align your firm's profile with your niche. And Twiriad is, again, when your followers are online compared with when you are online. So what should one automate? Whenever the person who runs your social media goes on holiday, it's really useful to be able to forward plan to cover for their absence. So that's an obvious one. The other is RSS feeds. Remember, we talked about how to search different feeds. You're highly likely to find that the feeds that you list are blogs and news websites from people who are active in your area of specialism. Now, once you have confidence that what they write about is of high quality, you could set it up so that your social media accounts automatically reshare every time they publish a new blog post. I do this with quite a lot of websites, partly because I know that they're good, I know that what they write about is appropriate for my audience, and it's something that I'm likely to be interested in. And no, you're right, I don't always read their articles ahead of publishing. But I do have a long track record of knowing that they're high quality operators. And so that's a business risk that I choose to take. Things that are not worth automating are things like a DM, which stands for a direct message. Thanking someone for following you is very, very old-fashioned and deemed to be bad behaviour nowadays. Don't automatically try and sell something to people just because they followed you. It puts them off at the start of their friendship. Take a look at the different networks that you work in and the sorts of frequencies inside those social networks that people work. And so you shouldn't automate just based on one network and assume it'll work for others. As we know, Twitter is 140 characters. It's short, and therefore the frequency of update is much more regular than, by comparison, LinkedIn. I don't recommend automating dialogue. If somebody replies to you, don't automatically retweet what they say. Imagine if they said something critical or pointed out a spelling error. It'd be a little bit embarrassing to automatically retweet things like that. And the other things, of course, are troubleshooting or customer support. If someone has problems, I strongly recommend a human being takes those interactions and answers them personally. Now, automation tips. These are generally good practice. So don't schedule too far in advance, a couple of weeks maybe while someone's on holiday, but the world can change quite quickly nowadays. And so it's probably good to keep it a week at a time at a max. Do customize your message to suit the different audiences. You might find that your LinkedIn audience is very different from your Facebook audience, particularly when you've done a little bit of appraisal of it. So do write different things for different audiences. It might be that it's just a little bit more casual on Facebook than it is on LinkedIn. Do understand what the tone of voice is agreed for your firm. If you don't know anything about this, we did a webinar on it a couple of weeks ago, and you can find it recorded in our YouTube channel. Do pause your automatic updates if necessary, particularly when current news is breaking that affect your area of expertise. You may want to stop and take note of what's going on before allowing automatic tweets to happen, and perhaps to agree as a team what the point of view of the firm is on a particular aspect. Elections are a very obvious time here. I believe it's not appropriate for most firms to comment on the process of political elections. And lastly, a reminder again, always read the articles before retweeting them. Now let's have a little look about internal monitoring and how you manage social media for the firm. It is important to know who's in charge. I've recommended a partner plus 1 or 2 staff, but of course that's a reflection of the size of the firm. If you've only got a 3-man firm, that's overload. When you set up your email account for each social media site, do agree which account it is and who manages it. You might want to have a special email set up that is just for your social media accounts so that it can be sent to several different people to read. Do decide what information you are going to share, what is on topic, what is not allowed, what is appropriate to fit your brand style. This is a knotty one. Whose job is social media? If you're a smaller firm and you haven't got a dedicated marketing manager, who takes this job and what is it? If there's a problem or an issue with your public relations, and social media is a form of public relations, and there's a crisis that develops, what are you going to do? The best response to any crisis is to have already written a plan for what the firm will do in the event of a crisis. Do get in touch if that's something that you haven't done. I strongly recommend that you put something in place. Now, if you've got a free LinkedIn account, it's really important to check it every single week. The reason being that on your individual profile and on the firm's profile, you can see who's been looking at your page. Now, people who are interested in looking at your page might be people that the firm should be interested in reverse. And because LinkedIn only allows you to see the most recent few days on a free account, that's why you have to do it regularly. I put weekly down here, but actually I believe it's 3 daily. If, on the other hand, you pay LinkedIn and have a premium account, it allows you to see a longer history here. I put down the perils of automation. If you have an idle moment, do go and do a little search into things like Hurricane Katrina and some of the other USA brands who have had problems with automation on social media. Some of them are repeats, where the same tweet goes out several times. Others are people writing inappropriate things while a crisis is developing. The Costa Concordia cruise ship disaster was a very good example of that. A brief aside on other ways to get your content shared. Of course, I've suggested you start off by sharing other people's content first, but here are some quick suggestions. Make sure your inner circle of collaborators know when you've got something important that's going to be coming up, so that they're alerted to the fact that it's coming and then they can reshare it. We've talked a little bit about different times of day. And lastly, repeating yourself. I do think it's worthwhile, particularly if you're using your news blog and you only write 1 article a week. It's really useful to be able to reshare this at different times of day and over a longer period of time. My suggestion there, as you can see, is 5 different times when you can reshare the same piece of content. And that's not counting rewriting the content, putting the headline out in several different formats. A quick word on etiquette. This should be straightforward, but quite a lot of people forget it. I was asked to list out a few well-using accounting firms who are using Twitter well. Lisa Martin I pick out particularly. They're bookkeepers in Wellington here in New Zealand, and they're very, very good at using hashtags. Now, your hashtag is probably the same as the niche or niches in which you operate. So they use bookkeeping, they use accounts, they use Xero quite often. They're awfully extremely good at showing the personality of the firm through their social media. Then have a look at Terry. He's a tax advisor, and at the beginning of every day, while he's reading his news feed, he then tweets out useful articles that relate to tax. So if you're in that niche, he's a very good person to follow. and you can also copy his method for yourselves. Rob Nixon is a consultant to accounting firms, and he has some excellent content which is well worth subscribing to his blog and his Twitter feed. And Justin Keane is a small accounting firm that is very proactive in his use of Twitter across the board, and he's very good at resharing other people's information. In terms of LinkedIn users, I really like the Ernst & Young company page. I think it's brilliant. I know they're a big firm, I know they're a global firm, and I know they have lots of resources, but it's well worth following that as an example of good practice. And then a client of mine, Montec Carter, who are a medium-sized firm, and they've done very well in getting their blog connected out to different social media channels. I've also put down 2 articles that I think are worth looking at. I know some of them are from overseas, but I still think it's useful for you to browse and educate yourself. One is using Clout Score as a ranking list of top accountants on Twitter. Clout has been partially discredited as a quality score. Do look that up. But I did think that this was quite a nice way of creating a long list of accountants to follow. And then UK accounting firms on Twitter. If any of you are feeling so inclined, I think producing an equivalent for your own country is long overdue. And don't forget other social platforms. In larger font, I've put up ones that I believe are useful. Personally, we use SlideShare. These slides are up on my SlideShare profile. YouTube, I've already mentioned. Google+, increasing numbers of automation tools will now also share to Google+, although it doesn't publish its API in the same way as other social media. Quora, which answers questions, again, provides very good blog content. And Business to Community, who are a Twitter resharing website where you can get high quality articles on particular areas of business expertise, but it's also a very good way of sharing your articles out into their audience. And at the bottom of the page, I've also listed a few others that you may be knowledgeable about. The picture websites, Pinterest and Flickr. Vimeo is another video one. Instagram, Tumblr. Referral Key is a referral network. And for those of you who use BNI, Business Networking International, they have a private social media site called BNI Connect. Now let's take a quick look at measurement. I am always very, very fond of measurement for marketing. And this is a screen grab of a client's Google Analytics. And as you can see, I've circled 2 different sources of referrals. So these are incoming links, and both of them are from LinkedIn. So even though this client has only just begun their social media work, LinkedIn is already proving a useful source of website visits. And now from my own firm's account, Google Analytics. As you can see, doing these seminars for CCH has been very beneficial for us. We've had 38 incoming website visitors as a result of this in the last week. We're also getting leads in from Vimeo and from our Twitter feed through FeedBurner. And I mentioned Business to Community. 15 people came into our website because they've read an article that we wrote on there. So all useful things and well worth getting your Google Analytics set up. I will share with you the blank spreadsheet template that we use to track and monitor all of the marketing that we do for clients and for ourselves, and you can download a copy at the end of this presentation for yourselves. So here's my recommendation of things that I think you should be doing. Take a look now at the things you've noted down while I've been talking. Growing your followers is probably the #1 useful regular task that you can do for your firm's social media. Set it in your diary as a regular recurring task and do it, even if it's only 10 minutes a week. Agree the tone of voice for the brand or the firm and what is or is not acceptable language. Set up some automation tools for your news blog and other published news that relate to your area of expertise. And definitely get those metrics going. I'd also like to offer my services to coach you and your team and to answer any questions you may have which are more personal than appropriate for sharing on a public forum such as this. And here's our concluding offer for you. The website at the top of the page, Counting Resources, will allow you to download the slides that I've just presented. We've also got a free ebook which has a chapter all about setting up RSS feeds inside CCH iFirm websites and how to do it. And that metrics spreadsheet for analytics I mentioned, that's there too. And now an offer. I'd very much like to have the opportunity to work with you to get you on the right course really quickly and to give you some early quick wins as you get going on accelerating your social media. Have a phone consultation, get your questions answered. I'll give you some coaching on things that you can do and top 3 recommendations for getting the whole firm going on social media platforms. And of course, as ever, there's a 100% refund guarantee. If what you buy is not satisfactory, I guarantee you I will give you your money back. And lastly, please connect with me. I'd like to grow my network inside social, probably LinkedIn, but also follow me on Twitter if you're there yourself. And on the screen is also my email address and telephone number if you want to make contact. Will, have there been any questions?
Thanks, Rebecca. We've had a few questions come in just around RSS. I guess to expand on a little bit more about what it is. Would this be better covered off in that ebook that you mentioned, or in a
No, I'll answer them now. RSS is really a very simple way of taking a small amount of information on your website and sending it somewhere else. That's all it is. Think of it like an individual phone line, that when it rings, there's something new that's ready for you to read.
I think we've reached the end of our content for today. As this is the last webinar in this series, I'd just like to thank Rebecca Caroe and Creative Agency Secrets for their time over the last 3 webinars, and also just to thank all of you for spending your time with us here today. I hope you all have a lovely day, and thank you very much.
Bye-bye.